Hey guys, welcome to the Girl Techno Podcast. I am your host, Shani Sanders, and today we have a really great show for you. We have Jessica Wilson. She is a dietitian, an author, and a community organizer. But today we're here to talk about her book called It's Always Been Ours. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me.
I am excited to have this conversation, to dive into this book and really understand, because I know part of it is that you're rewriting how we look at Black women bodies, correct?
Yeah.
And so I'm really ready to talk about this because there's so much going on, especially on social media with us looking at women and the BBLs everybody's getting. And everybody want to have everybody's a prototype almost now. Everybody just kind of looks the same. And it's like natural bodies are kind of like not the thing anymore. So I'm really excited to get into this book. So let's get it, because normally I like to start off with the story behind the brand, the story behind the book. What inspired you to, one, write this book?
I always say that I did not want to write this book. Writing seems hard.
Really?
I don't recommend it for the faint of heart. I was asked to write the book by the publisher after a story of mine and came in the New York Times. It was about culturally discarded foods in the dietetics field. So there was folks of color who were interviewed about our experiences. I always say I was the only Black dietitian all throughout my schooling, my professional career until 2020 when I did Amplify Melanated Voices with Alicia McCullough. I know. And then that's the only time I met a Black dietitian. Shout out to Whitney and Angela and others. But yeah, that was years, over a decade, I think, of being a clinician and not knowing any other dietitian. So with that, after then, my to-be editor reached out. Do you want to write a book? No. Do you want to write a book? No. I don't know. Maybe when I'm 60 and I want to work 7 days a week. Yeah. But she was finally, lied to me and said, "You're on Instagram. It'll just be as easy as writing those captions." And I said, she lied to me.
She hoodwinked you.
Yeah. And then I was talking to a friend and she just reminded me that the one-on-one work is rewarding and valuable, but it reaches one person. So if I could even reach 50 people with this book, 100 people, 500 people with this book, in the end, it would be worth it and worth my time.
Great. You know what? I am so surprised when you said that you didn't see other dietitians, that other African-American dietitians. And I'm trying to think now, when I think about when I've been to a dietitian, I don't know if I've ever been to an African-American one either, to be honest with you.
Right.
How was that? Let's kind of talk about, we're going to jump into the book, but let's talk about that experience in that industry. How was that experience for you? Not seeing someone that looked like you, and how did you feel about that? Yeah,
I always say that when I was going through my school, we were taught about Black people, African Americans, and what I'm putting air quotes, we can't see that on the podcast, what they eat and why it's wrong, and how we, need to talk to Black people and tell them that their cultural foods are unhealthy. And it was the same for, Asian American folks, Indian folks, white rice is bad, corn is bad. Why do people eat tortillas with their meal, type of stuff. It was ridiculous. And just naturally, because of how society and the medical industry works, Black and brown bodies are pathologized. We're told to think about our, imminent death, way earlier. You're going to get high blood pressure. You're going to get diabetes and all of these things. And, we're 20 or 30 and thinking about how we're going to die. And so that was a lot of the teaching and a lot of what made me skeptical about what my role was, what the dietetics field's role was.
Wow, that's amazing. You know what? I so crazy. I just had a conversation with another guest on the podcast, and I talked about how I am now trying to change my relationship with food, right? And redefine my relationship with food. And I think about, the times I eat, the times when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when it's celebration time. And I'm it's so funny how that's just I was raised. It's it's generational types of things that I was raised. When I think back over my life, it's this is how it's always been. When you eat, when you celebrate, when someone dies, there's the repast. We eat when we're sad. And it's so you get so used to eating, and you're not always eating the most healthiest thing, of course, but you get so used to just eating with all different states of emotions, that it was like an eye-opening thing to me. It was like, hey, that's why it's so hard for us to break certain eating habits when they've been embedded in us from like birth, almost, it seems.
I think that one is an interesting one, because like in other cultures and other countries, like that's totally normal. But in the, US, where a lot of it is like purity culture and like you should just never experience pleasure, and, you should always be restricting yourself. I like to say it's like only having sex for, procreation. Like you should never enjoy it, like it's penalized here. But in other cultures, it's totally normal. So I always wonder, like, what, how much of that we've internalized. And why are we, giving the message that it's not okay to eat food? And then it just like creates this weird cycle of, I feel bad for, eating here, or I should only eat whatever here. Yeah.
You do. You get into that whole guilt thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the title of the book. Okay. How did you come up with the title? What does this title mean to you exactly?
In the beginning, it was just one of the ones that was thrown out as a possibility, and it resonated, but I wasn't really sure. And then I was talking to, folks who were interviewed for the book and even afterwards, and just the realization that, our body stories have really always been ours before white supremacy snuck in and like started writing them for us. Our joy has always been ours. We sing and dance as a culture, but, there's so many things that have always been ours that white supremacy and colonialism just interrupted. So how, can we remember that we have so much, richness that hopefully we can access?
Yeah. Joy is so important. When I first started the podcast, I did the episode called, it was all about finding your joy, like what truly makes you happy. And because I know myself was going through a period of like, I feel like I do everything for everybody else. I make sure everyone else have enjoyable moments. I make sure the kids do. I make sure my husband have enjoyable moments. But it's like, what did I have for myself that I truly enjoy? And a lot of time, especially as parents, you'd be like, oh, my kids, I enjoy my kids. Yeah. You're like, okay, I get it. You enjoy your kids, but let's really talk about what's just for you. Let's not use that I enjoy my kids. We all do, but still we're more than just moms, right? We're more than that. So it's like, what do you have just for you? And I knew this is why I started the podcast, because this is what brings me joy, sitting here talking to people like you, being able to be back on air, being able to have a voice and express myself. And so I really had to search hard to find that joy, because I feel like a lot of us live without it. So let's talk about joy and how important it is and how it should be more in our lives.
Yeah. I always say that, the story of Black women historically, and, especially in my field, is written as one that is, vulnerable to like diseases or trauma and all of these things. And we're only, praised for our labor and what we can give to this country. And of course, that's wrapped into like the mammy stereotype. And our joy is never centered. And, sometimes we absorb that. And so what you've already said is amazing. But how can we rewrite our story so that our joy is at the center? And in a country, society that is always like, trying to take that away from us, how, that in itself is resistance, it's rebellion in the United States. So how, those, either tiny minutes, during the day, or like finding yourself in community. I always, advocate for, having moments of joy with others or in nature, just the things that seem like they're extra, but how can they be a real, part of our lives on the regular?
Yeah. It's so hard, when your life gets so busy, we forget about joy. We don't, we forget about the things that truly bring us joy, because we're so caught up in just the everyday. And a lot of us live with a lot of sadness and unhappiness and not really feeling fulfilled. I have a lot of good friends who are very successful women, successful parents and moms, but a lot of them still don't feel fulfilled. And you're like, you look at their life and you're like, man, but you have so much that so many people love to have. And it's still, they feel like something is missing. And I think that piece is joy.
I agree. Yeah.
It really is joy. It's like you can have happiness, but joy is something different, even from happiness.
Totally.
And it's a conversation that we all should still have. And I still advocate for joy myself.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I went to, I'm in California and we're a little woo out here. So it's like my first psychic reading was like, I need to explore this. I need to get into like, LA vibes here. Let me see what this is about. And part of it was, about joy. And it wasn't in the context of joy, but it was, like you need to get into the dirt. You need to be in nature. And, you need to have like a morning routine that includes joy and stuff that I just naturally had found, joy in. And I was like, why are you reading me like this? Like, you're telling me that I need to have more, joy in my life. But I was like, apparently it is also in the stars. But yeah, just like as a regular part of our lives to be experiencing these and how important it is.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into the book. What was the writing process for you? Because you said I don't recommend anyone doing it. What was the How was the writing process for you when it came to writing your book?
I think I'll come back. I'll go back to my statement. And if you have a full-time job, that's when I don't recommend it. Because at the time, I still had a full-time job, and so it was 7 days a week of working or writing, and so much of my time and like everything I was consuming, television or movie, like had to be about the book, or else I felt like I just wasn't working hard enough. And speaking of joy, like I love like Nicole Byer and Sashir Zamata's podcast Best Friends, but I was like, no, that's too, fluffy right now. I can't do that. So it was really in this like, I wouldn't even call it stressful. It was just hyper vigilant, especially because there is no book on how to write a book. Trust me, I looked and I'm, clinically trained. I'm like, there's got to be like some, quote, evidence-based, like template or like what to expect when you're expecting. So, and there wasn't, so I just was like writing everything down. I had like 20 chapters and I was like, this is not what this is supposed to be. So I was really just floundering out there and like looking for something to anchor the book in. And so really what it is a build up to celebrating joy the last 2 chapters. And I also infused it throughout because, Black women's bodies and health, respectability is a chapter, restriction eating disorders is a chapter. Like, I don't want to read, especially in 2023, a hard book. I appreciate, that there are hard books, and I'm just not one who wants to read one right now. So within, all of these, really hard things, like how we police ourselves and others in respectability, how we're restricting ourselves and how we're, overperforming our clear peers. Like there is conversation. It's all a conversation. There's like moments of me being sarcastic because I also couldn't write a hard book in 2020 and 2021. I just like couldn't do it for myself. So that was like a reorg, and like, I need to bring in, people. I need to make this something that I want to write and read. But it was still so hard to distill, like however many years of my life into the book.
How long did it take you to write it?
2 years.
2 years?
A year and a half. I would say 18 months.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
18 months, long months, right? You're right. I know. I guess like with having anything, if you're working full time and you're trying to start like a business, it is difficult.
It is.
And is very difficult. And I myself, like, I had committed to being, I just did it this year too, and I'm still trying to hold myself to it. I committed to being more of a reader because of a physical book, because I get an Audible quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I say, I think it's something about sitting down with a hardcover book or whatever paperback and sitting down and reading and just taking time to just, clear your mind and just read and focus on the book. I mean, I envy people that can do that, because when I try to sit and read, Jessica, I tell you, my mind races. It's like my mind races, and then I begin to get sleepy. And I tell people, even when I read the Bible, and God forgive me, I get sleepy when I start to read. So I have made a commitment to be intentional, to say I have time set in my schedule to sit and read a few pages of a book that I'm reading now because it's called All Black Women Must Die Exhausted.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's been a struggle for me, but I've been continuously with it. But it is something about a book in hand. You know what I mean?
I do, because you have to sit down. Because my Audible books, I'm taking walks, I'm, doing whatever it is, I'm commuting, and it's never just like a moment to sit and enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really have to be intentional about sitting down and reading, and I try to do it when nobody's home, because if I do it while people are home, you can forget it. It's never going to happen for me. I'm never going to be able to read like I want.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Black women bodies, and let's talk about restriction, because a lot of today that I see all on social media, even myself, when I struggle with my own weight and I'm in a place of like, okay, I need to restrict myself from eating carbs, sugar, dairy, in order for me to drop this weight. And we're now very much so a restriction focused society, because we feel that is the only way you're going to drop weight, because that's what they convince us. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great way to put it. And there's two things there. So like, why are we working so hard to shrink ourselves? And of course that's, white supremacy and colonialism. I say that, as Black women, we're always told that we're too much. So like the ability to shrink ourselves, the ability to conform ourselves, to be a little bit closer to what society demands of us. So shrinking metaphorically, but also physically, is like one way to do that. And of course, like, because society, is pervasive, we get caught up in that in ourselves. And then, the restriction, again, the purity part of it. It's so easy to just like align with, religion or other societal things, to just like think that we're supposed to be cutting out all these things and making these sacrifices. And it's just very, I would say, aligned with what capitalism is telling us. They're able to sell us all this weird food. Like that, all these pills, right? All the wellness culture. We're supposed to not eat food and eat blue green algae instead, or like whatever it is, or just
liquid diet.
Don't even eat food. For sure. So I think the restriction piece, it's very easy to sell. It's easy for people to find like community and all of a sudden be talking about bodies. And have like goals together. And again, I'm not, I don't have, strong feelings about like when people want to be restricting, because I understand the societal pressures, but it's not really going to bring us to like the joy, the stuff that's missing, like you were already saying.
And I find that, and it's so funny I find that when I restrict myself, it just makes me want to eat it more.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then it's like, when you go on these restriction diets and then you try to go back to normal eating, you just regain the weight again.
Right.
And then here comes the feeling of, oh God, I feel so bad about myself. So joy is gone. I'm joyful because I lost the weight, right? I'm in that space. But now when I'm back to eating regular and the weight comes back, I don't have the joy anymore. Now I feel bad about my body.
Right.
And you're right. It's such a societal thing, because we look at images on TV and we look at things that, like I said, social media now, it's not even more so TV. It's really just social media where we really go to now. And we look at bodies and people so fit working out, and we're thinking that's how we're all supposed to look.
Right.
Yeah. And I realized that as I began to get older, I used to have a trainer. She was an older woman. I was younger at that time. And she said, as you get older, it's not about being skinny. It's about being strong. You know what I mean? Because you want to make sure you're able to still move and go up and down the steps as you get older, And I think that today is really about, a lot of people think it's just about being skinny. Because like you said, we compare ourselves to our other counterparts.
Right.
And that's where we are.
Looking healthy, and looking fit is what it is. It doesn't really have anything to do with like what is happening for us. I often say like people who are restricting are often, like malnourished if they are doing wild and, crazy things. But if they look fit, if they look healthy, like that's what's more important. And yes, so much is lost. Like we have no idea what's going on for somebody, but yet we're comparing ourselves to them and their body. I also hear from people that they want to, work out and lose weight so they look like they work hard at something. Again, that like, I need people to think, you know, I am a hard worker, or and which basically falls into like capitalism and productivity culture. And I'm like, wow, like we are in this spiral and it sucks.
It does. It's like we don't love the bodies we're in. You know, like that self-love is, I think that's why a lot of people are really trying to push more self-love, because it's like sometimes you just have to love the body that you was born with, you know, love the body that you have, love where you are.
Can't change it.
And then, exactly. Exactly. Unless you go into surgery, because a lot of people are doing that now. Yeah. And that's a real big hazard too. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what can happen when you go through surgery. Everybody wants the small waist, the big butt, you know, because that's what society telling us we're supposed to look like. That's what society telling us that, hey, that's what men like. That's what men want to see, you know, and that's what a lot of women are running out to get that type of surgery. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I bring it back to Kim Kardashian and whatever, like 15, 13, I don't know what it was, when she was appropriating blackness, right? So she got all those, you know, injections or BBLs or whatever it was that she was doing at the time, you know, trying to like, try on blackness. But then that set the standard for Black women, right? And then that's, you know, when we saw the rise of BBLs, and that shit's expensive. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on your podcast.
Yeah, you can. I do it all the time.
Okay. You know, and then people are going to, you know, other countries for surgeries that are incredibly unsafe. I mean, we see stories all the time about Black women, you know, either dying or getting a bunch of complications for BBLs. And it's hard. Again, like I get it, and I know why you want to do this, and I'm still heartbroken that that's where we're at. So, you know, we're trying to look like a white woman who is trying to look like a Black woman, because that's what society like is valuing as far as right now.
Yeah, and it's so funny because Black women have been born with that shape. For centuries. We've always had it, you know, and to see white women now going to get BBLs and trying to be very much so curvaceous like Black women, it's just, it's mind blowing. It really is. You know, me and my friends talk about it all the time. You know, it's really mind blowing how social media really drives how people see themselves in every possible way of their life. Like you said, the comparison, looking at someone else's marriage, wishing you had that type of marriage or relationship, looking at someone else's life and what they have on social media, wishing you had it, their bodies, wishing you had it. And that's why a lot of these people on social media selling these, get fit quick type of packages. These detoxes. I was going to ask you how you feel about detoxes, because a lot of people are selling pills for detoxing. Is it something you suggest people to do?
No, never. That's what our liver. Oh no, that's what our liver is for. Our liver detoxes, you know, us naturally. Our lungs filter, you know, all the junk out of the air. Our skin does some of that too. Like our kidneys filter stuff. Like our body is like meant to detox. These pills, I honestly cannot imagine. Like, what do they go into our body? And it is wild to me. Like there's teas and tinctures, and it's brilliant marketing. I remember what was it? Like the lemonade cleanse or whatever it was. It was like lemonade, cayenne pepper,
the Beyonce cleanse. I think that's what he was on. Yes.
Yes. A friend of mine was a lobbyist for the dental, like American Dental Association. And she said the dentists loved that because it was just destroying people's teeth, all that acid, all that sugar.
Oh yeah, you think about it. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, so they were really excited about that cleanse. And then people would talk about, you know, all this gunk that's coming out of them. And I'm like, if you're not eating solid foods, stuff's going to come out. You know, we have millions of bacteria in there, but you're not eating fibers. So of course, like it's going to be weird when it comes out. Yeah. And the beginning of the year, you know, people are cutting out all these things and just going on like a sugar cleanse. And I'm like, your body like requires carbohydrates for your brain to work. Like if you don't have blood sugar, you die. So like where are we getting these like weird detox messages? I understand that people, you know, want a reset or whatever it is. And I get it, but I never recommend it, because then, you know, we start eating those foods again And then we feel a way about it and then like end up in a cycle. All right. So don't get supplements at all. I remember Dr. Oz was like the first one to do all that business. I worked at a drug and alcohol recovery program and people had no money, but were watching Dr. Oz because they were home all day and getting like raspberry ketones for whatever it was and spending the money that they had, because the promises of wellness are like gigantic. But then, there's no outcomes.
No results.
Yeah.
So do you just recommend people just eating I guess more of a balanced meal, just being able to balance out your meals, being able to be in a place where you can just eat more healthy, but still enjoy the things that you love? Because what I realized also is like a lot of my weight gain came because of portion size. And I think that, even as African Americans, we're like, we pile our plates up. Like if your plate isn't piled up, then you don't have enough on your plate. You know what I mean? And I think Italians are like that too. So it's all about portion. Yeah. It's about the portions, the comfort of it. And so do you recommend a certain way of eating for people?
I never say that there's a way, because however many billions of people are, that's many different needs that folks have. I always, look to cultural foods first, and really food access. So do you have access to the cultural foods? Because when we start taking that away, we end up putting distance between us, and our families and our culture. And that's terrible. But also, what's on our plate, especially as we get older. I never thought I'd have to think about fiber and vegetables and stuff. And then I get older, my body's like, you might want fiber. You might want to get more of that. So I don't recommend there's a way. I do, think that eating throughout the day is important. So it's really easy to pile a bunch of food on if we haven't made time for breakfast, if we hadn't had snacks, if we hadn't had lunch. So like, what does your day look like? How do you get, a lot of more energy? Just how are you feeling in your body is really what I'm looking for. Yeah.
So why did you write the book? Like, what is it that you're trying to get people to understand with the book?
That our bodies are not problems to be solved is really where it is, especially as Black women. We're told from the jump that our bodies, are too this or not enough that. And then from early ages, we're told, we shouldn't be going through puberty at whatever age that we're going through. You're growing up too fast. All of that stuff that we're just told constantly about our bodies and how they're wrong. And recognizing that that's a legacy of, enslavement when, our bodies literally were wrong. They were used as tools. But now how can, is there a way to find, context so we know that it's not a problem, that we're not literally a problem?
That's that is something, that our bodies are not a problem. And I think that's important because, body positivity is so huge now. When I look at Lizzo and I look at some of the negative hate that she gets because she's very proud of her body, you know what I mean? And not trying to fit into this cookie cutter image that they think female rappers or singers are supposed to be. And I love her body positivity. I love her confidence. And I think confidence, and I want to talk about that because confidence has a lot to do with how we feel about our body. And I think we struggle with confidence when we don't love ourselves, when we don't like the body we're in. I feel like that's really a confidence issue. And it could be something, and you correct me and just, contribute this, because I think about confidence, I think about childhood, right? You go through your childhood and you think about the teas and the stuff, even family members would say to you about your body. And how that sticks with you as you grow, so do you think that childhood trauma contributes to how we feel about our bodies?
1,000 billion%. Absolutely. And, childhood trauma about, just things that are said about our body, but, actual physical, trauma can make people view their bodies, especially, as a problem, blame our bodies for whatever it was. That happened. Emotional trauma. Our body becomes something that we're able to either, contain or do things to in order to pretend that we have some autonomy over something when we're experiencing that trauma and abuse. And also trauma just inherently increases weight. So we don't talk about that at all.
Yeah.
But, people who experience, trauma early on are just more likely to weigh more. And if we look back over centuries and generations, that is us. But when we go to the doctor's office, they're like, oh, you weigh too much, you should lose weight. Never like, oh, this makes sense because your ancestors were slaves. Like,
yeah, you're right. It's always that, hey, you need to drop her a few pounds, right, and
exercise,
you're to heart disease and high blood pressure, because they say heart disease is probably the number one killer among African American women. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get my weight down and try to make sure I'm in my best health. So it's a lot of scare tactics. I too feel that they use some time in order to get us to get to that place where we should be more healthier in their eyes. You know, some doctors use scare tactics,
and we never ever talk about how experiencing racism increases your blood pressure. Like that's just not part of the conversation. Like when we go to the doctor, they're like, not like, I'm sorry, or, that you have experienced these things. There's blood pressure medication that's really cheap. Like we don't have to blame you or tell you, that you're wrong. Like just, this is reality. And here's an easy, medication that doesn't have side effects. It's going to be fine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember I was on, cause I'm on a blood pressure medication, hereditary, and I was on one before and it was swelling up my feet and I didn't even know what was happening with me until my doctor finally said, you know what, I actually put you on this medication. I knew it was going to do this, but I wanted to see, so I knew that was one of the side effects of it, but I wanted to see if it helped you. And I was like, well, thanks for telling me
what to expect.
Okay. I mean, because it had me like scared. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, I've never seen this before. What's happening to my feet? And so it's so funny that, with those medications, we do need to be more, an advocate for ourselves and ask our doctors about side effects. Yeah. That's one thing I learned when it came to that. I was like, okay, from now on, I'm asking
That's interesting. I'm usually used to ones that
medicine.
Yeah. Increase the fluid coming off, not move it onto your feet.
Yeah. Like it was just really strange. It really was.
Yeah. They're learning more and more about how genetics plays a big role in how medications work. And, we don't need to say, but I will say that black folks are never like at the center of research. They're not like studying to see like what is literally different and how our bodies respond differently. Unfortunately, we're the research, if we look at syphilis, if we look at Henrietta Lacks, if we look at the history of gynecology.
Yeah, definitely. So what are the different chapters does each chapter tell a story in the book that leads to the ending? Like, how does this book structured?
So there's 3 sections. The first section is really about the ways that we've learned to survive. So I have those in 3 R's: the resilience, respectability, and restriction. So I bring in like the mammy stereotype, the sapphire stereotype. So the ways that like Black women are expected to labor for this country. I think of Stacey Abrams and how like she was supposed to save us in 2020. We were all just looking to Black women, especially, fat Black women, to like save us because, that was our job to raise this country for such a long time. So I look at that in the context of, resilience and everything that's put on Black women and how we have to work twice as hard. And then respectability, is just really, that's a lot of my friends' personal stories. So I interviewed friends throughout, and they were talking about ways, from their family or from other folks that they've been told to conform to, what whiteness demands in mixed, company. And what came out of that was like, we can have these conversations in a way that is transparent, but also like give somebody the choice. It doesn't, penalize, somebody for not conforming, for not, covering their, legs or wearing whatever it is, or speaking in a certain way. Like we can just tell them that, this is the way that whiteness works. It's gonna, just be trash. And then the restriction chapter is mostly about eating disorders. And my mentee, Lexi, who is a gymnast, and how her body as a gymnast was always thought to be like powerful. And, she was supposed to be a strong performer. But she wanted to do, the more quote elegant events of like beam and bars. And so how shrinking herself literally, enabled her to get better scores, and how that to her was not an eating disorder because Black people, quote, don't get eating disorders, you know, and how she didn't even think about it until she met me. Like that was just what she needed to do to get better scores in gymnastics. And she's like, yeah, I thought that throwing up and laxatives were like just normal, a part of life. I'm like, no way. Yeah. No. Wow. Right. And, but Black girls don't get eating disorders in our society because, you know, we're not pale and frail, as I will say. We aren't in needing of like the tending that, you know, white women and girls need. And so just how it looks so differently. And then so with Lexi, I take her through the story and talk about how, you know, all these artificial solutions to like, quote, you know, body image. And I put that in quotes because, you know, body image is supposed to be this like self perception, but like so often we're given messages that are not like internalized. They're not subjective. They're like real. Like we, you know, feel the way we feel about our bodies because, you know, the way that society treats us. But for people, you know, who are like thin and white, you know, it might be them just thinking that they're, you know, fat or like thinking that their body, you know, is, you know, the reason that they're not treated well. But, you know, we're actually living those experiences. So like all of these things that are supposed to be solutions really aren't for those of us who have different, you know, experiences. So like, how are these, you know, superficial reasons that work for people with more privilege? Like, how are they problematic, which is like the second chapter. I talk about Lizzo and how great and wonderful she is. But again, all the, you know, pushback she gets for loving her body and being unapologetic about it. And how all of those, you know, solutions are not going to help Lizzo, even though, you know, white women get so inspired by Lizzo and her bravery for, you know, so basically mammification of Lizzo. So all of these things that aren't going to work for, you know, folks of color, trans and non-binary folks. And then so instead of that, like, how can we use joy as a weapon? As Brazilians, how can we celebrate joy amongst each other, as we were talking about earlier?
Yeah. Like, you're right. It's like, you know, and I thought we was moving forward in this direction in terms of like body positivity and being more happy with the body you're in. But, you know, you're right. I think it's always going to be that standard of, this is the way you're supposed to look, that skinny woman standard, you know, that white woman standard, that you're supposed to look. Because I even think about when because I still work full time as well. And when I walk into a boardroom and I'm the only woman of color in the room, I'm the only person of color in the room. Many rooms I go in, I work in tech. So in that arena, it's really just me. And, you know, and you look at the rest of the room and they're all different. They're all nothing like you. They're very small and I'm a little bigger. And it's like, you know, you do see people looking and you do feel like, okay, I need to drop some weight because I need to fit in here.
Right.
It's almost like as if I need to make them feel comfortable with me when I walk in the room.
Yeah.
And if I'm at a bigger weight, then they're not going to feel comfortable with me. Exactly. It's not about me. It's more so about making them comfortable.
Absolutely. I tell the story of somebody who had that exact same experience in her grad program that was entirely white. And she was like, I am already hyper visible. You know, they already see me. If I, you know, lose weight, you know, maybe I'll make them indeed, absolutely, like you said, that was perfect, more comfortable, you know, with me in the room and not think I'm the receptionist or whatever.
Exactly. Not wonder, well, why is she in this room? And then understand that, oh, not only is she in this room, but she's a decision maker in this room.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So it's like, she's actually above me. And I've had women look me up and down because I'm above you and I do make the decisions. I'm at the table with the rest of the men with the decisions. And you're looking at me like, well, why is she here? You know, and it's so funny. I tell that story all the time. I did an episode called I See at the Table. And I'm like, where are we? I need more of us in this field that I'm in to come into this room and come into this space, you know, and be comfortable in our bodies while we're there. Because it is a part of that whole corporate America structure. And you think about moving ahead and you think about being, the size that you are and they allow you to, or will they take the other girl that's skinnier and, more that looks like them versus me who have all the qualifications and have the experience.
Right. And how can we change that? So
how can we change that?
I think about Deshaun Harrison, who wrote, hopefully you can edit this out as I think about it. I'm going to look at it. Hopefully you have an editor. I'm feeling very bad.
I do.
Okay. I'm glad you have an editor. Belly of the Beast. Okay, I'm sorry.
Belly of the Beast. Okay.
I think of Deshaun Harrison, who wrote Belly of the Beast, The Politics of Anti-Blackness as Anti-Fatness. Oh, wait. Let me make sure that's the subtitle. Oh, God. Okay. Thank you, editor, whomever. I really appreciate you. Okay, I'm going to actually read it. Because I totally cited them. Okay. I mixed it up. All right. I think of Deshaun Harrison, who wrote Belly of the Beast, The Politics of Anti-Fatness as Anti-Blackness. And they really talk about how, society was formed, as an idea. And then we built structures and systems around that idea of a society to make it, what it is. So I really do think, we can't think ourselves into a better society where it's, filled with structures and systems, but what and how as a collective, how can we start having new ideas? And from those, can we have new policies? I think about the Crown Act, right? That stopped penalizing and being able to fire Black folks for their hair. Right now, there's a campaign in New York, actually sponsored by Dove, which is wild, to have people to have people not be able to be fired because of their weight. Something that they've been able to do in the past. So these things are possible. How can we start shifting and having those conversations?
Yeah, because I even think about airlines when it comes to weight, and I've seen things in the past, right? And how they made someone who's a larger size buy an extra seat.
Yes.
Because of it. And it's how dare you?
Right.
You know what I mean? One, try to make a person feel bad about their body. And then two, try to make me pay for the size of my body. Financially benefit from the size of my body. And so it's so funny that we do have a long way to go as a society because people are still being judged by the size of their body, by the way they look, of course, by the color of our skin. We know that racism is very alive and well in this country. And what's so funny is that I know we're not talking about racism, but when I think about racism, I think about it as in terms of, we've come a long way, but I feel like it's something that's, I feel like it's something that's going to always be here.
Yes.
I really feel like I don't see a society where it doesn't exist. And it's sad to say that, I feel like there's more and more people that are being born and are understanding, are coming to this woke culture. But I feel like it's always going to be those people that are going to be racist, and it's always going to be a part of our society, and it's always going to be something that we're going to have to fight towards.
Yeah, I think about your boardroom and how it benefits, white folks to, stand in their, racism, because that keeps them in positions of power. And it's just easier for them to get ahead. I agree. And I absolutely agree about the young people. My hope is really in the young people who, are the 20-year-old folks are reading my book and, coming up with questions that are so smart. I can't even answer them on the spot. I have to think about them. I'm like, how dare you read my book and become smarter than me? Absolutely not. So I'm hoping that things are shifting slowly, in that direction. It might not happen in our generation, but hopefully, the young folks.
Hopefully in somebody's generation, because you're right. And body positivity, self-love, joy, all of that is a part of the journey of being human,
right?
To be honest with you. And I just feel like even as Black people, we do still have a long way to go when it comes to how we feel about each other and our weight. We're still having conversations, and I kid you not, we're still having conversations about light skin and dark skin women. Do you know what I mean? They're still having conversations about that. And I'm like, how long ago was this? And we're still talking about a light skinned woman and a dark skinned woman. And how they're different and how people preferences are. And I listen to these conversations. I just feel like, oh God, it's so sad to hear that we're still talking about this, where we're all women, we're all Black, no matter what no matter how fair your skin is. We're all Black people. But yet in our own culture, men particularly, right, are comparing us based off just our skin color. It is wild to me.
Absolutely. Both our skin color, and our size. I just don't like women who are XY. XY. I'm just not attracted, like across the board. What does that mean?
I don't even know.
I see it in amongst Black folks. And you're right, like we should be farther than this, but still, in generations past, in my family and my friend's family, like there were rifts, between siblings, those who were, treated better because they had lighter skin versus those with darker skin. And it's like, we are just one generation away from that. There's definitely got to be, a way to undo this. And I always say, Beyonce has real light skin, but like she is still not treated well in the industry when she's clearly the GOAT. Like if she's not able, to get ahead in an industry with the color of her skin, like we really need to be in this together.
Yeah, we really do. Why do you think that people just associate, just because someone is of a larger size, with them being unhealthy? Immediately they see someone who is a bigger size, because they've said this about Lizzo. Oh, she's unhealthy. I think Kanye West says this about Lizzo, to be honest with you. I heard him say this and I couldn't believe he said it. Oh, he's just said something about her size and that she's just, truth be told, she's just unhealthy. And I'm like, you don't know her medical history.
Right.
Why do people equate a larger sized person with being unhealthy?
So I will make a plug to read Fearing the Black Body, the Racial Origins of Fat Phobia. So Dr. Sabrina Strings takes us through 400 pages in 4 centuries. 400 pages? Yeah, wow. That's one of those, like, you read in bits and pieces. But she takes us through, how in the 1700s, thin, white, Europeans were looking at, Africans, and some Africans were thin because some just naturally, are and were, and some were very curvy. And, Dr. Springs tells the story of Sarah Bartman, who was a South African enslaved woman whom they brought to London and literally put her body on display because of the size of her hips and her, they quote, buttocks, which is, put her on display, charge people to see her. And because of that, like the social construction of that, of, our bodies as gluttonous, as, unhealthy, served, to create a supposed dichotomy, like fatness and blackness are, unhealthy and gluttonous. And then like purity and whiteness, is healthy. But so, and you'll even see, fat activists and those who are older who are recognizing that they, once ago when they were less intersectional, were really pushing to have like the same privilege as thin white women. And, that inherently to not be treated as, a Black person who's assumed to be, unhealthy. So I think just as our culture and those of us who lived through the 90s when we weren't supposed to eat fat and we're eating tons of snack wells, just, the assumption of fatness and blackness exists. And I think also because, Black and brown people are more likely to be poor and more likely, to experience all that trauma. So like, it's easy to say, because those, fat people, Black and brown people are unhealthy, therefore all of, fatness is unhealthy. But we don't know. Our body size is like way more about genetics and epigenetics than anything else. So I think it's just an easy marker to judge people, especially in a medical setting.
That's just being unhealthy. Yeah. People do that. They're so quick to do that. How important is, when it comes to just overall eating better, how important is food access to good food? Because we do have a lot of people who just don't have access to eat those type of ways. So how important is food access in that?
1000%. A lot of people will say that that they are, in, healthy food or like food access. And I am more an anti-hunger person. So I am just more invested in people having food, because so often, food access and like food banks are in this whole like access to fruits and vegetables. And I'm like, I like that. Those don't have a lot of calories. So if people are not eating meals, like I'm not going to be like, they need to be eating healthy meals. I would like people to have enough calories to, not be malnourished. first. And that, so not the conversation so much in public health. It's like, we need to teach them how to cook quinoa and kale, when they don't have enough money for food. And I'm like, that's not the goal. So food apartheid is real. Redlining and, zoning, makes, companies unwilling and also unable to put grocery stores in, historically Black and brown neighborhoods. That's intentional. And then we're able to say, you shouldn't be shopping at a corner store, or you need to take 5 buses to get an avocado because that's healthier. When in reality, like, I am glad you're eating food. Or like the penalization of, I think of Berkeley, California. I'm sure there's a East Coast equivalent, but like a very hippie type, culture, now gentrifying hipster, but, who will drink their like lemon lime mocktail, which is basically a fancy soda, but then talk about Sprite and the Black people eating Sprite. And I'm like, this is like, what are you doing here? In the lower income areas, you're penalizing people and then doing a fancy version of it over here. So like, what is the conversation? Like, why, are you judging people who don't have enough money for food? Can we get them money for food? Like, what policies, if we actually cared about people, I feel like, food is a human right. Like, why are we making it hard? Right.
Yeah, it is hard. And it's hard even just with the prices of groceries today. Like, everything has gone up. Everything. Eggs. Can you believe it? I can't even believe it.
So
when
sad.
I saw the thing trending on TikTok, and I was just like, because I saw the prices of eggs going up, and I saw that now it's trending on TikTok, and I'm like, what is happening? It's like, even for us 2 household income people, groceries are expensive. Very. It is a very huge part of our income now. And it didn't used to be. And every day I go to the store, or every time I go shopping, I'm just like, what is going on? The price of chicken, first of all, full transparency, I don't even buy salmon anymore. It's so expensive to buy salmon. It's like $30, $40, and I refuse to buy it. I refuse to do it, when before it was like 10 or 12. I just cannot bring myself to do it. And I'm just like, and my husband's like, well, I'm never gonna eat salmon again. I'm like, never for me unless you buy it yourself. It is ridiculous, the prices of what this is. So it's like, if the prices of groceries have gone up, for those of us who are 2 household incomes or have an income to buy groceries, is difficult for us. Just imagine what it's like for those who don't have it.
Right. And then,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then they feel bad for eating a sausage McMuffin for like $2 at McDonald's when they come into my office. I'm like, no, like, you ate. Like, that is my priority right now. And so we have this like guilt for people who are, feeling already bad about themselves. But I'm like, you ate food, like, great job.
That's all that matters.
The alternative was starving, and I don't want you to do
that's all that matters. You ate food, you were able to feed your children, and that's all that matters. And you got to be proud of that. Listen, Jessica, this has been a good conversation. It really has. I feel like we talk about stuff that I didn't even think we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this conversation, it just kind of goes all over the place, but the book is called It's Always Been Ours. It's by Jessica Wilson. What else do you want people to know about this book before we close this show out? What else do you want them to know, and where can they get the book?
They can get the book in all major retailers, including Amazon.
Okay.
I think I said it earlier, and I'll just say it again. Like, these are all really hard topics, but it's not a hard read because I did not want to do that to Black folks. So, folks are reading it in a weekend or listening to it in a weekend. I hope this inspires, conversations for you to have with your friends. I really want Black women to feel seen in this book in a way that hasn't been done before.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And like I said, this conversation about our bodies and how we feel about our bodies, and joy is such a huge thing that we all consistently should talk about it. I talk about it with my friends, so I hope my listeners also talk about it with their friends, because joy is just the one thing, like I said, a lot of us lack, and a lot of us don't even know that we lack it, or even know that we even need it. Right. Now, before I close out the show, I like to ask every guest, what is one piece of advice that you receive from a woman? Whoa. Like, what's the best advice you receive from another woman?
Don't make yourself small might be one of them.
Oh,
yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, in all senses.
Don't make yourself small. That's a good one. I like that one. Well, listen, Jessica, again, thank you so much for being on the show. We really do appreciate you. We definitely have to have you back again. It was a great conversation. I just felt like I was talking to one of my girlfriends, to be honest with you.
That's the goal, always.
I know, right? This has been a really good conversation, guys. This is the Girl Take No Podcast. I'm your host, Shani Sanders. I thank you guys so much for tuning in, for listening, for watching, and we will see you next time.